Hello everyone. It's Deaf Awareness Week this week, and I wanted to talk about the connection between tinnitus and hearing loss. And many of us in the tinnitus tribe do have some difficulty hearing. Question is it because of hearing loss, or is it because we're so distracted by our tinnitus that we find it difficult maybe to follow the TV or follow conversations or listen to a colleague or a friend or a family member? Well, there have been a few studies on this. One study found that more than 98% of the tinnitus patients that they had studied did have hearing loss. Not necessarily a huge amount, but they did have it. Another study showed that this figure was 63%. So there's quite a big difference in the figures there. But the important thing to take away from this is that more than half of people with tinnitus may well have some hearing loss too. Often that can be in the range of the tinnitus frequencies that we hear. Sometimes it can be over a broader spectrum. So the question is, how do you know whether your struggle to hear is because of your tinnitus, and why should you care? I mean, at the end of the day, you're having difficulty hearing, your tinnitus isn't so great. Why bother investigating? Well, here's why. First of all, hearing loss can be really isolating. I know this myself. When I lost my hearing overnight in 2005, I quickly started to pull away from social occasions where I was struggling to hear people. I found it embarrassing, to be honest, that I had to ask them to repeat themselves, but also I found it embarrassing that I was mishearing them. I was in my mid-30s and I just felt so out of place amongst all of my friends and family who would be having a great time chatting away. Let's say you were at a party or a social event and the noise would get louder and louder. I just ended up disappearing into the kitchen to do the washing up, or I would not bother going. It just seemed a waste of time to me and it really wasn't fun. And in the UK, at least, we're coming out of lockdown at the moment. And we've been spending a lot of time in the same place and talking to the same people. So we might not notice that we have actually started to lose a bit of our hearing. It's only when we get out now to socialize with people, even in the small groups that we can, that we realize that we're finding it more difficult to hear people, or that we're finding it more difficult to follow a conversation, particularly if you're in an outdoor space where there's quite a lot of other groups and it's quite noisy. Those difficulties can quite quickly turn into the kind of reluctance to socialize that I talked about was my personal experience. And that's why it's really important, if you notice that when you start to socialize, please go and get your hearing checked out. So the kind of clues to look out for are that you're finding it difficult to hear in noisy environments, that you're asking people to repeat themselves, that you are accusing people of mumbling. That was one of my classics. I used to say that my husband mumbled all the time, and it wasn't, obviously it was me. You're struggling more on the phone or with video calls than you used to. Or maybe you're just plain exhausted or stressed from trying to work out what people are saying. The important thing is that hearing loss can be helped, and that doesn't necessarily mean through hearing aids. It may just be that your hearing loss is down to wax buildup. Many people haven't been able to go and have wax taken from their ears, if that's the kind of thing they were doing before lockdown, for months, maybe even a year, because of their own need to self-isolate, or because it's been really difficult to get an appointment with a healthcare provider that was prepared to do that. So if you are prone to wax, or even if you're not, but you think maybe that's the solution, do go and get your ears checked out and have any wax removed. It can not only improve your hearing, but it can improve your tinnitus too, because those sounds that you weren't hearing before, those environmental sounds, the everyday sounds that we hear in the house or outside, they will help to mask your tinnitus. And even if it turns out that it's not wax and that there's a possibility that you do need hearing aids, it's absolutely worth giving them a go. Again, not only will they help you to hear better in those frequencies that you've lost, but they can also, because they are bringing back those sounds that you've lost, they can help to mask your tinnitus. And we know that tinnitus, when it occurs alongside hearing loss, is often in the same frequencies. But if you have hearing aids, you've also got the option to use them for masking. So depending on the kind of hearing aids that you might end up with, you would have maybe a masking program put on there by the audiologist, or if you have some of the newer models, even within the public NHS, you can link them to your smartphone via apps, and then you can even toggle with the kind of the settings yourself. You can add and remove masking sounds. You can just play masking sounds maybe directly into your hearing aids via Bluetooth. There are so many options these days. Even just over the last year or 6 months, hearing aids have come on leaps and bounds. So please don't worry about wearing hearing aids. They're nothing like what we used to remember our grannies wearing. I tell you this from experience. Treating hearing loss is really important, and not just for the reasons that I've mentioned, but because of a study that was released back in 2017. And that showed that there is a link between dementia and various lifestyle and aging issues, one of which is hearing loss. So according to the R&ID, which is a hearing loss charity here in the UK, mild hearing loss doubles the risk of developing dementia. Moderate hearing loss triples that risk. Severe hearing loss increases the risk 5 times. And the international review of that particular research showed that unaddressed hearing loss in midlife, and I guess that's anything from 40s onwards, is the highest risk factor that we can do something about for developing dementia. So if you have a hearing loss and you're choosing not to give yourself all the support and all the assistance that you can, then think again perhaps, because it has wider ramifications than simply just not wanting to wear hearing aids. So how do you take the first steps? Well, it's really easy. Just Google hearing test online. A lot of charities and information sites on hearing loss have got these online tests that you can do, which give you a good indication of whether you need to do some more investigation about your hearing loss. If they show that there's a hearing loss, or you simply want to take a more accurate test because you're starting to notice some of those indications I described earlier, then approach your GP, your primary healthcare practitioner, and ask them either to be referred to an appropriate provider in your area. For example, in the UK, that's often an NHS hospital, or increasingly a chain like Specsavers or Boots that will offer NHS hearing tests and publicly funded, i.e. free, hearing aids. So don't worry if you get referred to Specsavers or similar. They now work with the NHS to increase the provision of hearing tests and audiology services much more locally than having to traipse to your local hospital. If you don't have that provision in your country, or you want to try private, then ask around. Ask on Facebook groups, ask friends and family if they have any recommendations. If you don't know any in your area, ask me. I have loads of contacts with audiologists, and I would love to send you to somebody who I would recommend. So the upshot is, if you think that your hearing has declined, maybe over lockdown, maybe over the last few months, or you're not sure whether your difficulty hearing is down to having tinnitus or maybe some hearing loss, then I'd encourage you to start investigating, to start exploring that. I started wearing hearing aids when I was 37, quite a while ago now. And they have opened up a whole world to me of music, audio books. Oh my goodness, that was that was really exciting to discover I could listen to books, working and socializing that I would not have been able to access without them. So what are you waiting for?